Line meditation is not easy to practice, especially when one is not skillful in the practice. When one is not skillful in the practice, then if they try to practice line meditation, sometimes they may fall asleep. So in other words, the line postures is not encouraged at the beginning. But if one is not feeling well, then one can try to practice line meditation. So we begin to learn this practice through these three postures: sitting, walking, and standing. So first, as I explained how to practice sitting meditation. Every sitting meditation should be preceded by walking meditation. So during sitting, meditators have to keep the postures upright. You have to choose the postures that you feel comfortable. But the most important thing is to keep the upper part body upright. Then it's better to sit with the eyes closed and learn to let the mind and body relax. Do not feel tense. Then keep the breathing normal, natural. Then meditate at the beginning of sitting. If there's no dominant object or distinct object that's arising at that moment, then meditators have to begin with a dominant object, because at the beginning of sitting meditation, meditators may not find or perceive any dominant object or any distinct phenomenon. Then meditators may begin with this basic object of sitting meditation, or sometimes also known as the primary object of sitting meditation. So during sitting meditation, meditators have three basic objects or three primary objects. So these three primary objects or three basic objects are not the only objects of the vipassana meditation during sitting. This three objects is known as a primary object or basic object is because if there is no other distinct object arising, then meditators be mindful of this primary object of sitting meditation or basic object of meditation. So as long as meditators do not mindful of one object or any object is arising at that moment, then the mind may wander away. So that's why every moment meditators be mindful of one object or one phenomenon. So at the beginning of sitting meditation, if meditators do not perceive any distinct object or dominant object, then meditators may begin with the first primary object, that is the movements of the abdomen. So as long as one is alive, there is breath or breathing. So when there's breathing, then the abdomen will expand or move forwards. Then the abdomen will move inwards or contract. So this movement of the abdomen is the first primary object during sitting meditation. So if there's no other distinct object, meditators perceive this movement of abdomen as it is. For example, you perceive the abdomen moving forward or expands, then you're mindful of that movement as it is. When the abdomen moves inwards, you're mindful of it as it is. So whenever meditators mindful of the movements of abdomen or any objects or other phenomena, meditators also have to make mental labeling or mental noting. This mental noting or mental labeling is not yet meditation. Meditation, so it's not mindfulness meditation. Mental noting or mental naming is to help the meditators to develop mindfulness, so that the mindfulness becomes attentive, precise to the object. For example, you perceive the abdomen expands, then usually in this meditation, be mindful and know it as rising. So you should not pay attention to that mental noting. You should perceive. Perceive means be aware, be mindful of the process of the rising movements. Then the abdomen may move even again. Then you may make a mental noting falling, but mindfulness should stay with the process of the falling movements. So rising movements and the falling movements are the first objects of first primary object during sitting meditation. If meditators do not perceive this movement of abdomen clearly, or sometimes he could not perceive any movements at all, and at the same time there is no other distinct object, then meditators should not stop there. Meditators have the alternative, or in other words, be mindful of the second and the third primary objects. So the second primary object, or the second basic object, is the sitting postures. So you be mindful that you are sitting with the upright postures, and mentally note sitting, sitting. Or be aware that you are sitting with the upright postures. So you be mindful and note it once or twice. For example, sitting, sitting. Then, if there is no distinct object arising, you be mindful of the context that you can perceive during sitting. The various contexts that you can perceive during sitting. Or sometimes we call it the touching points. For example, during sitting meditation, if you place your hand above the knee, then on the left there's a touching point, then on the right there's another touching point. Sometimes during sitting, your calf touches the cushion. There's also one touching point. Then your legs touch each other. There's also one touching point. Or sometimes the leg touches the legs. There's another touching point. So there are few touching points or contexts you may perceive during your sitting. But meditators need not have to be mindful of all these contact or touching points. Meditators may choose two touching points or two contexts. So meditators have to decide themselves which two contexts or touching points are clear to your mind. For example, you perceive that the touching of your hand that you place on the knee are quite distinct to your mind. Then you be mindful of that touching point. For example, I choose the touching of my hand to the knee. So I'm mindful of the touching on the left and mentally note touching, touching. Then I direct the mindfulness to the touching point on the right and mentally note touching, touching. So after I'm mindful of a second touching point, then if there's no distinct object arising, I go back to my sitting postures again and note sitting, sitting. Then if there's no distinct object arising, I direct the mindfulness to the same touching point again, the touching points on the left, and note touching, touching. And be mindful of touching points on the right, touching, touching. Be mindful of sitting posture again, sitting, sitting. So these sitting postures and two touching points are the alternative to the first primary object. So in other words, if the movement of abdomen is not clear, or meditators do not perceive any movements, then meditators be mindful of the sitting postures and 2 points of touching as the alternative. So as the meditators mindful of sitting, sitting, touching, touching, then if the movements of abdomen become clear again, the meditators go back